Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Karmic Gacha system in Modern Family World. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 311, Dangerous Visitor. Edward POV. We stayed at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas, a stunning replica of Venice featuring intricate Italian Renaissance architecture, soaring ceilings, and beautiful frescoes. The girls and I booked the executive suites. Not that we couldn't afford the presidential suites, but the executive suites faced each other, and we were the only guests on the floor, which provided greater security. Several guards patrolled in front of the elevator as it was the main point of entry. The girls shared an executive two-bedroom suite, which boasted nearly 2,000 square feet of living space, with each bedroom featuring twin beds. Maggie and Vanessa shared one, Selena and Taylor shared the other. I stayed in the executive king theater suite, which had the same square footage but included a theater and a gym, along with a king-size bed. The hotel has a strict rule about privacy, so we could hang out together without needing to always be looking over our shoulders for paparazzis and guests filming us, not that we ever went to the common area. Vanessa and I came out of the elevator together around 3 in the morning. Both of us were laughing at an incident that happened at Snoop's, and we walked in the same direction. How can you roll a blunt faster than him? Snoop has a really weird look on his face after he lost. Vanessa cackled. I smirked and said, he kept wanting to go again, not wanting to accept it. He blamed it on his old bones. Vanessa laughed after she mimicked Snoop, covering her mouth with her left hand slightly while her right hand was hitting my arm. As we stood in front of the door, she calmed down slightly, still smiling as she said, I don't want the night to be over. Easy for you to say, you didn't have a 5-hour-long event just this afternoon, I said with a playful disdain. She stuck her tongue out slightly and said, I haven't seen your room yet. But you have seen mine. That's pretty unfair. You can see them in the morning, I replied casually, snubbing her intention of continuing to play. Vanessa pouted slightly and crossed her arms together. At the very least, you should walk me to my door. You didn't pay attention, didn't you? I turned to her with a grin. Vanessa was confused, and she asked, pay attention to what? I pointed at the door and said, this is your room. Speechless for a second, Vanessa used her keycard and the door opened. She looked at me with a slight shock and then accused me, you planned that, didn't you? Don't blame me. I just followed you when we walked. And I followed you. Both of us burst into laughter before saying goodnight. As I returned to my room, the cheerful mood vanished. Took you long enough, said the mysterious man in a fedora, impeccably dressed in a suit, as he swirled the drink in his hand. I helped myself to your minibar, if you don't mind, he added casually, crossing his legs as he set the drink down on the side table. That's a little rude. People will think I'm the one who drank, I replied, greeting him casually as I sat down in front of him. But sure, I don't mind since I'm the one who kept you waiting. So, to what do I owe the pleasure of a visit from the most notorious man in the world, Mr. Raymond Reddington? With a smile on my face, I looked straight at the man in the fedora, who resembled James Spader. He chuckled in disbelief, my God, you're just like your mother. That comment soured my mood a bit. Calm, composed, and most importantly, extremely bold, he continued. Your mom, however, never reeks of marijuana. She'd be quite disappointed if she found out. He teased, a slightly concerned expression crossing his face. A pang of guilt assaulted me even though I tried not to care about it. Can you tell me why you wanted to meet? I asked, getting straight to the point. A few hours after we checked into the hotel, he had come with his aide, telling my security that he wanted to discuss an important issue. My security details contacted me as he warned them not to call the cops or else someone close to me would die. They had no choice but to contact me about it. Raymond nodded slightly before he said, "All right then, we should talk." It's very late, and we don't really have time for chit-chat. I assume you're aware of the events happening in your mother's country? I nodded and replied, I have a brief overview of it, which was a lie. That's good enough, he said casually before turning serious. In less than 12 hours, the freedom fighter bases all around the country will be raided simultaneously. There's little opportunity to get your mother and the rest of the patriots out of the country before that happens, and that's what I'm here to discuss. I felt a bit confused. Huh? Why me? Raymond looked taken aback. Because it pertains to the safety of your family. Ugh, I groaned disdainfully. Raymond seemed puzzled and asked, You don't care what's going to happen to her? She made her bed. Now she has to lie in it, I replied indifferently. You cannot save someone who doesn't want to be saved. He stared at me intensely before responding, 2 times. What 2 times? I asked, still confused. She saw her friends die, from starvation, he added casually. Do you know what that's like? Seeing the lights go out from their eyes, their bodies becoming thin husks of what they once were? I fell silent as he continued. When the Soviets fell in 1991, your mother smiled for the first time, thinking that the stalled gears of her country would finally move again. Not breaking eye contact, he said, you have no idea what she has been through. I'm sure you have resentment towards your mother, but I also know there's no way you're going to abandon her. I sighed, thinking for a moment, and took out a small card from my wallet. I handed it to him before leaving the living room to pour myself a drink in the pantry. Laminated? Raymond looked at the card and saw it contained the details of a trading account along with its password. Get a new card maker, he shouted from afar. I made it myself. I retorted. He chuckled and said, I'll refer you to an excellent craftsman in this area. He's very handy with this sort of stuff and wouldn't betray the customer's private information. I don't need it. I already ordered the machine, I scoffed. Refer me to the ones who make your hat. He took it off his head and pointed at it. This? I got this from a small shop in Washington. It's easy to find just one street over from the Congressional Building. As he wore it back, he said, Do you want me to bring anything to your mother? A bouquet of roses, perhaps? That's not necessary for their trip to Canada. I replied, insinuating the place I wanted them to go at the same time. Raymond was speechless for a second before he let out a long sigh as he scrutinized me. Although I agreed to help, I didn't want her to come back into my life. Raymond took the card and stood up from the seat, walking away. Even if we didn't discuss it, the money inside the account would be used to buy the Patriots new identities and a way out of the country, more than enough for them to live the rest of their lives comfortably. The resistance would fall. As the trade talks began, people in Cuba finally saw hope for their country, which is why they would reject the freedom fighters' agenda. They had been in the darkness for so long, and my mother's group couldn't inspire light for them. So her own people betrayed her as they were too devoid of hope to continue. My mother is losing because she cannot inspire hope. Raymond Reddington might think he found me, but in actuality, I reached out to him by staying at the hotel he owned. Yeah, he owned the hotel, from the shadows. I understood very well what was going to happen, and Raymond was the only person capable of saving them. I only acted like I was forced to help to prevent him from thinking he was doing me a favor. Raymond was a businessman, a very dangerous one. As the family fund in Cuba dried up, he couldn't go and save my mother without getting remuneration, as he would be looked down upon in his line of business for doing charity. Before he left, Raymond turned to me again and said, Don't worry, as far as everyone is concerned, this is just your family's hidden asset that your mother gave me for safekeeping. He was reassuring me that I wouldn't be implicated in any of it. Raymond was a man of his words. It would be as if he never stopped by. By the way, I just want to say, wonderful album, and absolutely mesmerizing voice. I really loved the orchestral rendition of your song. I'll be sure to buy a ticket if we are ever in the same city. I smirked slightly and said, I'll make sure to charge you extra then. He grinned and then left the room, greeting my security guard standing in front of the room casually. After he left, I finally sighed in relief and said, Robin, deactivate protection protocol. Deactivating. Robin replied before 5 small drones appeared out of thin air. It cloaked itself using holographic technology before it went into guard mode. I was meeting with a very dangerous man after all, so I had to keep some security measures in place. Robin, contact Aunt Camila. Tell her I want to speak with her. We returned home the next day. There's only 4 more days till Christmas. My dad and Frankie cornered me in the kitchen while I was cooking, and Frankie asked, Edward, what do you want for Christmas? Just get some cat toys for Vader. I replied easily. My dad shook his hand and said, that's for her. What about you? What do you want? I counted what I wanted with my fingers. World Peace. One Piece ending. Reanimating Naruto from the start with a much higher quality animation. A big titty goth, I don't know, you can get me some scarves or socks. A big titty what? Frankie was confused. Nothing. I shook my head dismissively with a mischievous grin on my face as I stirred the pot. You guys know what I want? Maybe for you two to go on a trip together. Both of them exchanged wary glances before Dad replied, we're not leaving you for Christmas. I rolled my eyes and said, you can go after. Just hire a hot nanny to take care of me and we'll be fine. No, how about some sneakers? My dad rejected my idea for the nanny instantly. I pouted slightly and said, sneakers will be fine. Then, I stopped stirring the pot and asked my dad, continue to stir this for me. While he was stirring, I put on my jacket and took my wallet with me. Confused, my dad asked, are you going somewhere? I'm going to Haley's to see her place. I replied casually. My dad was shocked, hey, I don't know what to do with this. Stir that for 20 more minutes in low heat before turning the fire off. I said as I left the house. Most of the houses in the neighborhood have already put up their Christmas decorations. Colorful lights, plastic snowmen as it's not snowing here, festive trees and wreaths. Got to admit, Christmas in Wisconsin looks a lot more fun. I mumbled to myself. While I was walking toward the Dunphys, I suddenly heard some clattering sound coming from a house beside me, and then I heard an old man cursing. Turning towards Mr. Klezak's house, I saw that he had tripped on the steps and almost dropped his box of Christmas lights. Mr. Klezak, are you fine? I asked in concern. None of your business, kiddo. Continue walking. The old man continued gruffly, his leg was still limping. I approached him slightly and shouted, do you need? Before I could finish my words, he already closed the door behind me. Why did he take off his lights? I mumbled to myself. Oh my God, my inner, Hallmark movie character personality is coming out. I widened my eyes in shock before I rushed to Haley's place. Walking down the basement, I saw the renovated room and Jay working hard to build the closet with the rest of his contractor. Hey Jay. I greeted casually. What's the emergency? Jay turned around while still holding the shelves, you're here. Quick, help me install the closet before Phil comes by. What? I was confused when Phil burst through the door, shouting, stop. I told you. We're not using Pritchett Closet stuff. You don't even pay me. At the very least, you could market my product in the video. Jay argued. Phil shot back, trying to remove the closet, I told you we're going to discuss sponsorship deals first. We're family. Jay exclaimed, aggrieved. He turned to me and said, can you speak some sense to this guy? He thinks he's such a big shot after he got 150,000 followers. 160,000. Phil corrected him. Wait, how did it increase so much? I asked, intrigued by their argument. The project got featured in the news this morning, Jay explained. And a morning talk show. Phil added excitedly. Really? I googled it instantly but couldn't find anything, so I asked Robin to look it up for me. It turned out it was covered on several talk shows. Phil's video had managed to break into the mainstream, which wasn't surprising. An elderly talk show host watched Phil's renovation video and commented, "See? That's a good father. He listened to his daughter and built her a studio just for her to follow her dream. I'd marry a guy like that in a heartbeat." Another host added, "This is the most cost-effective renovation I've ever seen. Not to mention it's very creative. I can't wait to see the end result." As the renovation started, Phil introduced the episode, saying, "Welcome to another episode of Basement Renovation, where I use my real estate skills to build a fashion workshop for my teenage daughter who loves making dresses." It was a simple enough introduction for the short video, but as the series continued, many viewers recognized the good-hearted intention behind Phil's renovation, and it was even mentioned on Ellen. Jay, initially skeptical about the entire project, finally changed his mind and wanted to promote his product through the channel. Just then, Haley walked down, barely paying attention to Phil and Jay's argument. She focused solely on me. "You're here. How is it? Did you check out the room yet? What do you think? I just got here. Why don't you give me a tour?" I smiled softly at her. Haley smirked with excitement and grabbed my hand. "Okay. I'll give you a tour." Turning to the bickering duo, she said, "Dad, Grandpa, Mom wants to see you upstairs. Also, Dad, I want Grandpa's closet. He custom-made it for me." Jay looked smug as he glanced at Phil. Phil sighed and said reluctantly, "Okay, honey. Whatever you want. I can get us a better deal, but it's whatever you want, sweetheart." Haley smiled obliviously, not grasping what Phil was saying. Jay guffawed loudly as he walked upstairs with Phil. "First of all, the studio." She linked her arms with mine and pulled me into the next room. The studio was already completed, a simple space with 2 half-body mannequins and a measurement table for cutting fabric. "Take off your shirt." She suddenly picked up a brownish waffle shirt from the table and turned toward me excitedly. "Okay." I slowly unbuttoned my shirt and took it off. Haley inhaled sharply as she gazed at my body and said hesitantly, I might have made a mistake here. You don't actually need a shirt." I grabbed the shirt from her hand and said, "Don't be silly. I get cold like everyone else." As I put on the shirt, I suddenly felt my belly button chill. Wait, is this a crop top? I was shocked to see 2 of my abs visible as the shirt stopped halfway. Wait. Did I measure it wrong? I tried to make a perfect fit. Haley pulled the shirt down, but in doing so, the stitches on the shoulder ripped. She widened her eyes in shock before laughing dryly. "This is a failure," she muttered with a self-deprecating tone. "Maybe I don't have what it takes," she mumbled. "Don't be silly. It's great for a first try." "That's my 10th. She interrupted me. It's still great. You just need to learn more." I comforted her by patting her head softly. She looked up to me with her big eyes and said, "Really?" "Yeah. It's great. When you finally have your own collection, I'll model for you." Haley smiled slightly before she became determined. "I need to make more slutty shirts." "No, not that." I was startled for a bit. Haley grabbed my arm again and brought me to the bathroom. "Grandpa installed a shower here, so I don't need to share it with anyone else. I chose that wallpaper myself. What do you think?" The bathroom has bronze pipes and a moody look, which was something Haley loved. Then, she showed me her bedroom, which was the room we were in before. "It's still empty, but I think I can move in here before Christmas," she said excitedly. Then, she flirted, "When my new bed come, do you want to?" Before she could finish, my phone rang. My dad was calling me at an unfortunate time. "Sorry, I have to take this," I said. Haley was dissatisfied, but she didn't say anything. While we were talking, the 2 other siblings, Alex and Luke, concocted a plan together and began acting it out upstairs where all the adults were in discussion. Chapter 312. Conan Part 1. General POV. 3 days before Christmas, the production crew at Entertain worked diligently to build an interview set for Edward's talk show. The host, Conan O'Brien, wore a puzzled expression as he spoke with Pepper. "So, instead of a prepared question, I can ask him whatever I want?" Conan narrowed his eyes slightly, leaning forward in confusion. Pepper chuckled, replying, "Yeah. Ed said it'll be fine. We can always edit out anything too personal, so you don't have to worry about that." Conan smirked, "Yes. The billionaire's support for the studio budget, something a public network will never have. Can we have caviar or a lobster menu instead of chicken wings?" Pepper responded casually, "Okay, I'll get you some. I was just joking." Conan's astonishment turned into excitement. As Pepper set up the stage, taking suggestions from Conan, Edward sat in a small room with Taylor. Taylor paced back and forth behind the couch, shaking her hands nervously in a self-soothing manner. Edward flipped through a script, humming casually. Suddenly, Taylor snapped at him, her head whipping around almost 90 degrees. She winced in pain. "How are you so calm, Al?" "Bitch. Did you just call me a bitch?" Edward looked up, astonished. "Ow," she whined, sitting beside him and massaging her neck while shooting him a glare. "We're going public without adequate preparation." "You're fine with it, but I don't have improv experience," she scolded. Edward waved his hand dismissively. "It's fine. You're going to do great." "I don't think any celebrity has done this," she fretted. Edward placed the script down and beckoned her to sit closer. He began to massage her neck and shoulder, saying, "Actually, there have been a lot. You don't remember because there's not much to recall. Once they confirm it on air, people lose interest after they get their fair share of drama." Just then, Harvey entered the room without knocking. She paused, confused at the sight of Edward massaging Taylor. "What happened? Were you guys boxing in here? Do you need to file a lawsuit?" she teased. Edward scoffed. "She did this to herself. I had no part in it. Also, Harvey, we need to produce this, too." Harvey raised an eyebrow as she approached the couch. "Again? This is the 10th movie you've approved this week alone." Edward nodded slightly. "I can't help it. They write great stuff. To become a scriptwriter in Hollywood, luck and connections are crucial." However, Edward expanded his search beyond the city, attracting talented writers who had never had the opportunity to showcase their work. Entertain needed its own content. The movies wouldn't be produced all at once but over the span of 6 months. Especially this one, Psychopath Diary. "I love it." Edward grinned as he pointed to the script. The thick, 500 pages script on the table. The witness to a murder scene runs off with the killer's diary, and after getting hit by a car while trying to escape, he suffers from amnesia. When he wakes up, he mistakenly believes the diary is his. "I love the internal struggle between the man he is and the man the diary makes him out to be," he added. Edward thought he had seen a similar show before, but he couldn't recall the details. If the story is that good, then why hasn't any producer picked it up? Taylor asked, her tone laced with sarcasm. "Because it already has an ending. The plot is too expansive for a movie but too contained to stretch out over multiple seasons," Edward replied casually. "Stories like Chernobyl, Queen's Bandit, which have a short amount of episodes, become a huge success in the future." Edward believed that he should never underestimate the consumer's thirst for quality content, which he aimed to make. Noticing Edward's enthusiasm for the script, Harvey asked, "Ed, do you want to play this role?" "I mean, I do, but it would have to be filmed in London due to the gun control laws to make the story credible. If this were shot in America, it'd end within an episode," Edward chuckled, imagining the psychopath murderer being taken out with a gun bought at Walmart. "And honestly, I don't have the time to commit to it in the next 2 years," he shrugged, masking behind his disappointment with a poker face. Suddenly, Edward turned to Harvey. "By the way, why are you here?" "Ah, I talked with some friends about the capital gain tax. I found a loophole for that. I'm here to ask if you want to do it that way or the normal way and pay the $250 million. Flabbergasted, Edward turned to Harvey with disbelief. Pay the $250 million? Do you even know me? Use the loophole. You don't even have to explain it to me. Got it. Harvey winked, pointing her finger at Edward snappily at the same time before she walked away. 200 people were brought into the studio as the live audience for today's shoot. Conan was already ready at his host's table, greeting the audience before finally welcoming the guest. The camera started rolling as Conan began. Welcome to a very special episode of Hot Ones, where the wings are hot and the guests are even hotter, Conan said with a playful grin. As you can see, even though this is set up like a late-night show, there's a bucket of chicken on the table in front of me, making it an eating show instead. He added with a sly side eye. A loophole. The audience chuckled, aware of Conan's recent ban on late-night shows after parting ways with NBC. Today, we have a truly extraordinary young talent in the hot seat. He's a multi-talented singer, songwriter, tinkerer, billionaire, philanthropist, a real Casanova, and he's definitely the one writing this long introduction. Conan joked, eliciting laughter from the audience. Many in attendance were fans of Edward and also his employees. The joke resonated with them as they knew how Edward is and the possibility that he actually wrote that. Conan continued, this reclusive superstar rookie recently helped save the president, but you won't find him doing interviews with just anyone. He wanted me. Me. Listen to that, NBC. Conan stood up from his chair, mockingly scolding the network with a dramatic expression. The audience erupted with laughter as Conan backtracked, sorry. I let my emotions get the best of me there. NBC and I have an amicable breakup from each other. The audience giggled at his skit. Today, he's chosen to sit down with me, Conan O'Brien, for an exclusive interview. So, prepare yourselves as we dive into some spicy wings and even spicier stories with Edward Newgate. As Conan announced his name, Edward walked to the guest seat with a confident yet humble demeanor. He wore a stunning maroon suit, tailored perfectly to accentuate his muscular frame, with 2 buttons undone, revealing a hint of his chiseled chest. His angular face was striking, and his mesmerizing green eyes captivated the audience. Girls swooned as he flashed a charming smile. The combination of his stylish appearance and undeniable charisma made the atmosphere electric. The audience cheered thunderously as if they were at a concert, which surprised Conan. However, as a professional, Conan kept his mind sharp and immediately stood up to shake Edward's hand. All right, Edward, welcome. You look fantastic in that suit. Definitely giving off those billionaire rock star vibes. Are we sure you didn't just walk off a magazine cover? Conan said, trying to break the ice with a compliment. Edward chuckled and replied, I wanted to dress a bit more casually, but all my clothes burned in a fire. So, I had to grab this one for my endorsement photoshoot. Let's just pretend this is what I usually wear at home. Right. Because I, too, typically rock a classy suit at home, Conan quipped, teasing Edward. Just wiping my nose with a Gucci jacket when I sneeze, or sleeping in my Italian-crafted suit. Edward added with a grin, or just hopping into the hot tub wearing Armani. The crowd burst into laughter at the duo's banter and how Edward played along with the joke. Conan laughed, and then tossed it all away afterward. In front of a billionaire, those thousands of dollars worth of suits become disposable kitchen napkins. What else should I do? Give my money to poor people? That's like charity or something. E.W. Edward joked, poking fun at himself. The audience erupted in laughter at Edward's delivery, and Conan felt a sense of satisfaction engaging with him. For a talk show host, the greatest nightmare is having a boring conversation. Thankfully, with Edward, Conan didn't have to force the fun, it came naturally. Enough appetizers. We're going to be serious now. Conan clasped his hands together, leaned forward, and gazed intently at Edward. Edward mirrored his seriousness and said, I'm prepared. Suddenly, Conan broke character and turned to the audience. Wait. I forgot to explain something. Edward relaxed, leaning back. Oh sure. Go ahead. Beside the stage, Taylor watched in disbelief at Edward's performance. God! Why is he so hot? Let me move on from my feelings in peace, she mumbled. Her eyes were glued to Edward's performance, same as all of Edward's friends who came to watch the show. In the audience seat, most of Edward's friends were there. Conan addressed the audience. On this special interview, Edward promised to answer all the questions I'm going to ask him, honestly, he said, holding up a piece of chicken. While we eat, until none of the chicken is left. Edward added, and the interview will only go on till we finish eating. Conan took a slow, exaggerated nibble of chicken, dragging it out. Alright, I took a bite. Let's be serious again. Both Conan and Edward furrowed their brows and leaned forward, clasping their hands together in unison as if it were a premeditated skit, causing the audience to burst into laughter. On a side note, Edward doesn't know what questions will be asked. Damn, that's hot. You erg. As the audience laughed, Edward smirked and explained, you didn't think there wouldn't be a catch, did you? What have you done? Conan asked accusatorily, feigning shock. Edward replied, there are 10 wings, each coated with a different sauce. Some are mild, some will make you wish for death. Don't worry, we'll provide milk. But if you drink it, the question becomes null, and you'll have to move on to the next one. Conan, already aware of the rules, stood slightly and declared, do you think a little spiciness will stop me? I'll make sure to eat all of them. He stuffed an entire wing into his mouth and swallowed it in one go. I'll make sure you regret. Damn, that's hot. The audience roared with laughter as they watched Conan struggle to cope with the heat. Finally, regaining his composure, he asked Edward, you thought up this game when you invited me here. Do you enjoy devising these sadistic games and watching people suffer? Edward, slightly taken aback, grinned and replied, I don't like seeing people suffer. I just like seeing you suffer. Why? What did I ever do to you? Conan quipped, playing along with Edward's reply. Edward, with a hint of irritation, said, who asked you to get kicked out from hosting the late-night show in the same year I made my debut? And before the show ended, you didn't even invite me. The audience now understood why Edward was punishing Conan. They chuckled slightly and waited for the reaction. Wait. You wanted to come to my show? Conan acted touched, then suddenly grabbed a napkin and exaggeratedly wiped his tongue, causing the audience to burst into laughter. Yeah. I love your show. See that, NBC? Conan shouted straight to the camera, making the entire audience, even the cameraman, snicker. Edward continued amidst the laughter, I wanted to go there after the VMAs. But you know what happened then. By the time I was over the trauma and wanted to come, you were already canned. Conan, taken aback, laughed self-deprecatingly, wow, you really don't pull your punches. Edward chuckled and then stared at the camera like Conan did, saying, why'd you do that, NBC? The audience erupted in laughter, and Conan joined in trashing the network, look what you did, NBC. Edward suddenly turned serious and looked at Conan, wait. Didn't you sign a contract that prevents you from talking smack about the network? I'm not talking smack. I'm just asking them some sincere questions, Conan quickly deflected with a sly grin. He turned to Edward and added, I'm impressed you even know about that. Nosy is one of my prominent traits, Edward replied, prompting chuckles from some audience members. Conan seized the moment and said, you have a lot of traits. One of them is heroic. Can we talk about what happened at that time now, or should we wait until the finale? Let's test your luck. If you get a mild one, we'll wait for the finale. If you're going to suffer, then we can dive in now, Edward replied, subtly nudging Conan to eat the chicken first before asking his question. Conan groaned in dissatisfaction, staring into the bucket bowl. Hi, he scowled, prompting laughter from the audience. You're making me wish for torture while acting like it's a sweet deal. You're like the devil, he remarked, eyeing Edward. Edward smiled innocently. Of course, you can choose not to do it. I'll do it. Conan declared, grabbing another wing. After taking a nibble, he smacked his lips a few times. Oh, this one's one of the milder ones. So we'll wait for the finale. As he inhaled sharply from the spiciness, Conan asked, in your Instagram feed, there are a lot of pictures of your cat. Are you only a cat lover? Edward smirked. That's a really mild question. Yeah, I love cats. But I also adore all kinds of animals. He proceeded to share stories about his family dog on the ranch, as well as Ace, his panther. He recounted how he met Vader after fleeing from a paparazzi and discovering Vader rummaging through trash for food. As the audience got a glimpse into Edward's personal life and saw how genuine he was being, their admiration for him grew. The next question was also mild, where Edward talked to Conan about his VMA award. Conan expressed regret for not inviting Edward to his show, but he defended himself by saying he didn't think Edward would come. They acted out what could have been, leaving the audience feeling a bit melancholic. While the interview continued, executives from TBS suddenly approached the company with an offer. Ronaldo whispered to Pepper hurriedly, TBS wants to buy the rights to broadcast this interview. For how much? Pepper asked, intrigued. $20 million, Ronaldo replied, his voice slightly shaky, clearly surprised by the high offer. Pepper smirked and muttered, Eddie really understands this industry. He played them like a fiddle. Among the audience, a few industry plants from major cable networks were present, eager to see how the interview would unfold. However, witnessing the audience's reaction and experiencing the fun of the interview firsthand convinced them that the money would be well spent. With Edward's exclusive interview drawing immense interest, several major cable networks were vying for the rights to broadcast it. TBS, Comedy Central, MTV, VH1, CNN, FX, and A&E all recognized the potential for high viewership and buzz. What started as a $1 million offer quickly snowballed to $20 million, the maximum a cable network would pay for this kind of interview in 2009. It was an insider story about what really happened at that time and why his house was targeted by a missile, how he escaped death itself. Not only that, but many producers were also interested in securing the rights to his story for potential movie adaptations. Although there's this big story we're all dying to know about, there's something else too, Conan slowly led into the question. In the first and second weeks of November, you and your friend Taylor S. both released singles, and the lyrics matched up with each other. The audience was intrigued as they remembered that, and the interest from the cable TV representatives grew more and more. But neither of you spoke up about it. Usually, people talk, but you guys have kept mum. What happened there? Conan pressed on. And remember, you promised to be honest. Edward pretended to be a little helpless and uncomfortable. As he adjusted his seating, he let out a beleaguered sigh and told Conan, that's actually quite a sad story. The crowd exclaimed, you, as they highly anticipated the answer. I wanted to sympathize, but right now, I feel like I can hear my own brainwaves moving around. Conan said, with a reddish face as he got another extremely hot chicken wing. I cannot drink the milk, but can I just dip my tongue in cold water? Yeah, I can excuse that. Edward said. A staff member quickly ran into the set, placing a tall glass of water on Conan's table. Conan dipped his tongue in that water and glanced at Edward, continue. The audience laughed and Edward advised Conan, why don't you keep an ice cube inside your mouth? You're trying to trick me. Once I drink that melted ice, you'll nullify the question. I can see through your trick, you sadist. Conan accused him. Edward smirked and said, I said milk. Not water. Wait. Damn it. Conan exclaimed as he quickly downed a glass of water, glaring at Edward in frustration. I could have done that from the start. He finished the entire glass in one go. Edward chuckled and replied, it's not my fault you didn't think of it. God. Why am I being punished like this? Conan lamented, before turning to the camera again. Why'd you do that, NBC? Edward joined in, why'd you make him suffer, NBC? The two exchanged amused glances and chuckled together. Conan said, are you trying to avoid answering the question? I'll answer it. Geez, Edward groaned. But before I do, I'd like to ask for a lifeline, Edward said, eliciting laughter from the audience. To their surprise, he suddenly turned to the side and called out, "Taylor, do you want to come out here so we can talk about this together?" Moments later, Taylor S. stepped onto the stage, her presence instantly lighting up the room. The crowd gasped and applauded enthusiastically. Wearing a simple yellow dress and with her blonde hair curled into locks, Taylor waved to everyone before sitting next to Edward. Conan pretended to be surprised as well, shouting, "What?" multiple times, exaggerating his shock as if his mind had been blown. Ronaldo whispered to Pepper again, "They offered 25 million now. If they knew what'll happen later, I wonder if they would still offer the same amount." Pepper waved his paper fan and laughed deviously. Chapter 313, Conan Part 2. General POV. But before I do, I'd like to ask for a lifeline, Edward said, prompting laughter from the audience. To their surprise, he turned to the side and called out, "Taylor, do you want to come out here so we can talk about this together?" The audience fell silent, holding their breath as they looked in the direction Edward was facing. Some were skeptical, thinking he was just acting out another skit, but their eyes widened as they spotted a streak of blonde hair moving toward the stage. Moments later, Taylor stepped onto the stage, instantly lighting up the room. The crowd gasped and applauded enthusiastically. Dressed in a simple yellow dress with her blonde hair curled into locks, Taylor waved to everyone and walked to Conan and Edward, both who were standing as they welcomed her to the stage. Conan feigned surprise, shouting, "What?" several times. In the audience, Annie dropped her jaw at the sight of Taylor, and her eyes became dazed. The daring scene made the fans want to snap some pictures, however, as there was a no-phone ban inside the studio, they squirmed restlessly in their seats, with a lot of them having extreme reactions silently. "Oh my God, what's happening?" Lily, Edward's fan club president, asked anxiously. "Are they going to announce they've broken up publicly?" She mumbled, saddened by the sinking relationship. As Conan reacted, he said, "This is not what I had in mind when I asked the question." "Wings?" He offered the bucket of chicken to Taylor, and she instinctively reached for it. "Oh, okay." Before she could grab it, Edward stopped her with a look of disbelief on his face. "Don't take that." Taylor exclaimed in realization, drawing laughter from the audience. She narrowed her eyes and scolded Conan, "You tried to pull me into your suffering." "A drowned man will always pull someone down with them," Conan replied dramatically, followed by an evil laugh. "Mwahaha." He then abruptly stopped and greeted Taylor politely. "Also, this is our first time meeting each other." "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too," Taylor responded politely. "Please, have a seat," Conan said, resuming the interview as the audience quieted down. "I guess we should get right into it. So, the big question is, are the songs you both released in early December, Hate You Love You by Taylor and Daylight by Edward, have anything to do with one another?" he asked. The audience held their breath as they waited for the answer. Taylor and Edward glanced at each other before Edward told her, "Go ahead. You started the whole thing." Taylor turned to Conan and finally answered, "Yeah. It has something to do with each other." The audience gasped and exclaimed in amazement and shock as they heard the confirmation. Many theories were floating around online, however, hearing it from the parties involved made it all official. Conan widened his eyes slightly before he leaned in closer to Edward and whispered to the duo, "Are you guys sure you can talk about this?" Edward shrugged and said casually, "We are going to talk about it when the whole project is finished, however, we don't think we're going to have a chance to do that anymore." "Project? What project?" Conan asked, pretending to be confused. Conan leaned forward, a playful glint in his eye. "Before we get into that, shouldn't you eat another chicken wing?" The audience erupted in laughter, sensing the playful tension. "Oh, come on!" Conan exclaimed, slamming both hands on the table, causing the crowd to roar with laughter. "This still pertains to the question. It doesn't count." He whined dramatically, feigning exasperation. Edward chuckled, glancing at Taylor. "Should we give him a chance?" Taylor smirked mischievously. "We should. There's a lot to unpack here." The audiences laughed, and Conan finally felt relieved. He leaned back, crossing his arms. All right, start from the beginning. So we can all be clear about this. Edward nodded, his tone shifting to serious. It all starts with the release of Tenerife Sea. During that time, we hinted at a collaboration between the two of us at the end of the year. Taylor continued seamlessly, her enthusiasm infectious. We wanted to do something special for the fans. But, well, circumstances got in the way. Mostly because of Edward. She shot him a playful glare, and the audience chuckled knowingly. What did he do? Conan asked, leaning in with a gossipy grin, prompting more laughter from the crowd. Taylor smiled, clearly enjoying the moment. First of all, we planned to release 6 songs, 1 per week, until the end of the year. We challenged each other on songwriting, creating songs with the same theme. The audience gasped in unison, intrigued by the planning. Lily, who has been speculating that the song was part of their collaboration, felt that she had hit the mark and celebrated silently. I knew it. Let me guess, the first theme is love and hate? Conan speculated, raising an eyebrow. Exactly. Taylor confirmed, nodding enthusiastically. Both daylight and hate you mirror each other. Edward added, chuckling, Taylor called it a challenge, but it's actually a bet. Taylor looked startled. No. It's not a bet. It is a bet. A songwriting bet. We were arguing to see who's the better writer between the two of us, and it just happened. Edward insisted, grinning. We checked the streams, and if Taylor lost, she'd dye her hair blue and wear cat ears. Laughter erupted from the audience, and Taylor rolled her eyes playfully. If Edward loses, he'll shave his head bald. The crowd roared with laughter, enjoying the backstory. Those close to the duo knew they were being untruthful, crafting stories to protect their reputations and keep fans united despite the rumors. Just throwing out the fact that they weren't together might divide the fans. They felt that it's not worth the risk considering the fact that both of them were still newbies in the industry. Right now, they might be incredibly famous, but fame is momentary. They had to plan for the future too. So, who wins? Conan asked, leaning back with an evil grin. On a side note, I always carry blue dye and a shaver with me. Edward laughed, shaking his head. Neither of us won because someone can't go a week without stirring up controversy. His tone was laced with sarcasm. Taylor gestured subtly towards Edward. Him. Conan laughed and so did the audience. Conan then asked, wait, let me get this straight. You were supposed to see who won, but then Edward punched a guy in the club, and that ruined everything? The audience gasped and murmured. Taylor sighed, looking a bit beleaguered. Yeah, but it's not that bad. We can just postpone the release for a week. But then, Edward had to go to court. It's not really fair that she has to keep silent about it, but I had interviews after interviews about my court case. Then, I went viral again for carrying a bloodied cop to the hospital, Edward added, a hint of tiredness in his voice. Taylor jumped in, and then he fought some terrorists. Which completely ruined the competition. And my house got blown up. Edward concluded, the crowd's astonishment palpable. So, yeah, the project got ripped to shred. He confessed. Taylor gently patted his arm and said while chuckling, I don't blame you though. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience, their eyes wide with disbelief at the wild series of events. After seeing Taylor comfort Edward, the fans realized that they had a great relationship as that looked too casual to be faked. Conan leaned back, taking it all in. What kind of life are you having? He asked, incredulous. I've interviewed people for over a decade, and never have I seen someone with a more hectic life. No wonder movie producers want your story rights. Conan, you want to know something cool? Edward suddenly interrupted. What? Conan leaned in, intrigued, expecting more details about Edward's chaotic life. When you first started hosting, I didn't even exist yet. You're really old, Edward deadpanned. The audience erupted in laughter, while Conan sat momentarily speechless. Taylor covered her mouth, giggling, and playfully hit Edward's arm. The timing of his remark was so unexpected that it left her slightly dumbfounded. "Excuse me," Conan exclaimed, feigning offense. "I'm not too old." "You're too young." "I never said too old, but whatever," Edward replied nonchalantly, prompting Conan to tug at his hair in frustration. The crowd roared with laughter, their enjoyment palpable. As he calmed down, Conan said, "I feel like you did that on purpose to change the subject." "You caught that, huh?" Edward smirked in agreement. Conan laughed maniacally. "But I'm not letting you off that easily. Why didn't you just release the next song amidst all the controversies?" "Taylor, please fill us in." Flustered, Taylor replied, "Well, the next theme is betrayal. So, the song is kind of a diss track. If I release that first while the media is focused on his heroism, then I'll be labeled a stone cold bitch." Conan finished her thought, a cheeky grin on his face. Edward leaned forward, mock serious. "What did you just say to her?" "Wait. No." Conan pulled back dramatically, and the audience erupted in laughter. Taylor joined in, her laughter contagious, while Edward continued to tease Conan, and the crowd roared again. "I apologize," Conan said to Taylor, feigning sincerity. No, she waved her hand dismissively. "I'm not offended at all." "Yeah, she knows she's at," Edward began, but Taylor shot him a glare that made him quickly shut up. The audience chuckled as she maintained her fierce look, and Edward kept his gaze straight ahead, trying to suppress a grin. Conan smirked, leaning into the moment. "Finish that sentence, Ed." "A beautiful girl," Edward complimented as he met her eyes, which made Taylor's angry gaze melt and she blushed as she faced the camera. Edward glanced at the camera and said, "We can cut this part, right?" "No," Taylor protested, while the audience chuckled. Conan accused Edward playfully, "This is abuse of power. You might have paid for everything here today, but I still haven't said thank you," Edward interrupted with a cheeky smile. "Thanks?" Conan feigned confusion, raising an eyebrow. Annie laughed out loud in the audience, while Abed, sitting beside her, mumbled with admiration, "He's really great at ad-libbing. I want him to act in my next show, but I won't have the budget to hire him." After a moment of playful banter, Conan turned serious. "I'm curious, if you released the songs for your project, then why didn't you just tell everyone about it? Why keep silent about the whole thing?" Taylor and Edward exchanged wary glances before Edward sat up slightly. "I guess I should be the one to explain. There are a lot of reasons for that, but mainly it's because of the shipping of our relationship." Taylor nodded, and the crowd exclaimed "You" in amazement. "See, this is what I'm talking about," Edward pointed at the crowd, eliciting laughter at the absurdity of it. "What's the thought process here?" Conan asked. "Isn't shipping you guys a good thing?" "I won't deny it's good," Taylor replied. "Edward and I are really close, so it doesn't bother us." Edward continued, "But the shipping became so serious that some, and I'm not saying all of them, some fans began to attack every single person of the opposite sex we're in contact with." Conan exclaimed in realization, "Ah, so you want to give them a middle finger?" "What? No, of course not." Taylor interjected quickly, shaking her head. Edward smiled and added, "The reason behind the project's narrative about breakup is to slowly ease them into the possibility that we're over?" Conan guessed, raising an eyebrow. "Friends," Taylor corrected him with a laugh. Edward continued, "So after hate and love, there'll be betrayal, and the last theme will be about moving on. At that time, we figured people will think that we're over." Taylor nodded, adding, "Only then will we talk to the people and tell them all about the project." "So you're playing them?" Conan asked accusatorily. Edward smirked and said, "We have no choice." Edward turned to the audience again and said, "So, we're thinking, maybe we can't release all of them as we has missed the timing and ruined the project, but how about we perform the last two songs here in the studio?" Before he could finish his thought, the crowd erupted into a deafening roar of approval, cheers and applause filling the air as everyone enthusiastically agreed with his suggestion. Conan smiled in satisfaction and turned to the crowd. After the break, Taylor and Edward are going to perform the last two songs live right here in the studio. The filming stopped even though the camera was still rolling. Edward and Taylor talked with Conan for a while before both of them went to prepare for the show. Beside the talk show set, there was a stage which was split into two sections. Taylor stood on the left side of the stage underneath the spotlight, while Edward's stage was still darkened. The song is called Back to December. Taylor announced. Holding a guitar in her hand, she strummed the melody to the song as she stood in front of a microphone. Even though Edward claimed that the entire songs were made up, Taylor didn't act like that. She sang, full of sincerity.
I'm so glad you made time to see me. How's life? Tell me, how's your family? I haven't seen them in a while.
The crowd became silent as they enjoyed the song. Taylor glanced upward, thinking about her memory with Edward.
You've been good, busier than ever. We small talk, work and the weather. Your guard is up and I know why.
Closing her eyes, she sang.
Because the last time you saw me is still burned in the back of your mind.
In the darkened stage, Edward gazed at her intently as he watched her performance.
You gave me roses and I left them there to die.
Taylor turned her head to the next stage slightly, as if telling it to Edward. Lily, the fan club president, caught it, and so did the camera. As the cameraman moved behind Taylor, recording the performance facing the audiences, Taylor sang the chorus, So
this is me swallowing my pride, standing in front of you, saying I'm sorry for that night. And I go back to December all the time. It turns out freedom ain't nothing but missing you, wishing I'd realize what I had when you were mine. I go back to December, turn around and make it alright. I go back to December all the time.
Edward chuckled slightly, thinking about his advice to Taylor, prompting her to change the song name from September to December. The crowd began to enjoy the song immensely, however, they were directed not to make loud noises during the performances.
These days I haven't been sleeping, staying up, playing back myself, leaving when your birthday passed and I didn't call. And I think about summer, all the beautiful times I watched you laughing from the passenger side and realized I loved you in the fall. And then the cold came, the dark days when fear crept into my mind. You gave me all your love and all I gave you was goodbye.
As the chorus began, the background singer also joined in to provide some harmony.
So this is me swallowing my pride, standing in front of you, saying I'm sorry for that night. And I go back to December all the time. It turns out freedom ain't nothing but missing you, wishing I'd realize what I had when you were mine. I go back to December, turn around and change my own mind. I go back to December all the time.
My personal song was made for him, but I can't even claim that. I'm so pathetic. Taylor thought sadly. She felt her breath choke, but she quickly suppressed her emotions as she continued to sing.
I miss your tan skin, your sweet smile, so good to me, so right. And how you held me in your arms that September night, the first time you ever saw me cry.
The memory of the breakup they had after the VMAs flashed in her mind. Maybe, if I didn't act so childishly back then, we might have more time together. Taylor glanced at Edward again before she turned to the audience.
Maybe this is wishful thinking, probably mindless dreaming. But if we loved again, I swear I'd love you right. I'd go back in time and change it, but I can't. So if the chain is on your door, I understand.
Even though she understood that they couldn't be together anymore, a part of her still wanted to hold out hope.
But this is me swallowing my pride, standing in front of you, saying I'm sorry for that night. And I go back to December. Turns out freedom ain't nothing but missing you, wishing I'd realized what I had when you were mine. I go back to December, turn around and make it alright. I go back to December, turn around and change my own mind. I go back to December all the time. All the time.
Taylor stopped strumming and closed her eyes. The crowd applauded and cheered supportively after she finished her song. Taylor smiled and waved at them in gratitude as her stage light slowly dimmed. As the stage darkened, a single teardrop fell from her eyes. The other side of the stage brightened, revealing Edward sitting in front of a piano. Chapter 314, Conan Part 3. General POV. The crowd went silent again after seeing Edward underneath the spotlight. Wearing sunglasses, Edward's finger pressed gently on the piano keys. The song is called "When I Was Your Man," Edward whispered seductively at the microphone as he turned his head to the crowd. Bruno Mars, "When I Was Your Man."
Same bed, but it feels just a little bit bigger now.
He crooned, which made a lot of the female fans swoon. Taylor, who was feeling a bit sad before, immediately became absorbed in the music as it was the first time for her to listen to it too.
Our song on the radio, but it don't sound the same.
Taylor flinched slightly as she heard the verse. Didn't he say he's going to make it up? She thought by herself, her heart beats quicker. As Edward sang, he glanced at the audience slightly before looking straight forward.
When our friends talk about you, all it does is just tear me down. 'Cause my heart breaks a little when I hear your name.
The spotlight shone on the background singer, revealing their presence on the stage. Conan became mesmerized by the narrative Edward had created and mumbled, "NBC really fucked up considering Edward has a bad impression of them now."
It all just sounds like too young, too dumb to realize that.
Edward's powerful voice transported the audience. His soul voice resonated, and it made some of the fans become dazed.
I should have bought you flowers and held your hand. Should have gave you all my hours when I had the chance.
Taylor looked affectionately at Edward, however, her immersion would soon be ruined by the next verse.
Take you to every party, 'cause all you wanted to do was dance. Now my baby's dancing, but she's dancing with another man.
As if. Taylor retorted by her lonesome. Taylor knew that she had never danced with someone else. As the piano melody continued, Edward glanced at Taylor slightly with a smirk on his face, knowing that she'd be pissed off by the lyric. However, he aimed to make her mood change again.
My pride, my ego, my needs, and my selfish ways caused a good, strong woman like you to walk out my life.
That's better, Taylor exclaimed to herself.
Now I'll never get to clean up the mess I made. Oh, and that haunts me every time I close my eyes.
Edward's bellow made the crowd let out a small gasp.
It all just sounds like too young, too dumb to realize.
The way Edward played with his vocals made the crowd extremely impressed. If Taylor's performance was considered great, Edward's performance was phenomenal. Edward dropped his head slightly as he sang.
That I should have bought you flowers and held your hand. Should have gave you all my hours when I had the chance. Take you to every party, 'cause all you wanted to do was dance. Now my baby's dancing, but she's dancing with another man.
He pressed the piano keys passionately as he raised his head and bellowed.
Although it hurts, I'll be the first to say that I was wrong.
Wow! Annie, who has her first experience watching Edward performing live today, felt breathless as she looked at him.
Oh, I know I'm probably much too late to try and apologize for my mistakes, but I just want you to know.
The melody slowed down as Edward continued. The spotlight turned on at Taylor's stage, revealing her lone figure standing there. The crowd had to cover their mouths to prevent themselves from screaming. Taylor wasn't surprised with the sudden exposure as Edward had told her about it before. She gazed at Edward, and he too looked intently at her.
I hope he buys you flowers. I hope he holds your hand, give you all his hours when he has the chance. Take you to every party, 'cause I remember how much you love to dance.
Taylor walked towards Edward's stage, and the two headlights slowly merged into one.
Do all the things I should have done when I was your man. Do all the things I should have done when I was your man.
Edward grabbed Taylor's hand and kissed the back of it. The crowd erupted thunderously as he finished the performance. Taylor pretended to smile as people applauded her. She whispered to Edward, "Ha-hum, what's with the dancing part? I'm going to beat you up. Just a hook for the song." "Don't think too much about it," Edward replied casually. She faked a laugh and said, "I'm going to beat you up twice now." Edward turned toward her and asked, "You want to stay after your part is done?" "No. I'll just watch from backstage," Taylor replied casually. Both of them returned to the talk show together and sat in front of Conan again. Conan did his crowd work first to ensure a smooth transition between the performance and the talk show. Welcome back. What an incredible performance from Taylor and Edward. Let's give them another round of applause. The crowd cheered joyfully, finally releasing their pent-up excitement after being kept quiet during the performance. Conan turned to Edward and Taylor. "So, the songs are the last ones from your project, right? What's going to happen to the ones you didn't perform?" Edward widened his eyes in realization and said, "Oh, I'm going to include those in my next album." "Ow!" Conan exclaimed in disappointment before turning to Taylor. "What about you?" "I'll do the same thing," Taylor replied with a chuckle. The audience reacted with disappointment before laughing again. Conan commented, "Just admit that you guys insult each other so much that you had to scrap that song." Edward pointed at Taylor and said, "She actually did that." "Hey! I didn't." Taylor protested, prompting laughter from the crowd. "But you know, this is actually not the end," she added, changing the subject. "Huh?" Conan perked up. "You mean this is not the final one?" Edward replied, "We actually thought of releasing a duet at the end." However, the crowd cheered loudly before he could finish. Edward chuckled slightly before continuing, "However, our schedules in the next 2 years are so different that if we did that, we wouldn't be able to perform it together." "Ah," the crowd exclaimed in disappointment again. "So will there be a duet or not?" Conan asked. Taylor replied, "There will." The crowd applauded enthusiastically, whistling and shouting the celebrity names. Conan looked at them incredulously and said, "Are you all just their fans, or are all Californians like this?" As the crowd laughed, Conan suddenly held up his bucket. "By the way, I finished all of it. Now, we can resume the interview uninterrupted." "Are you okay?" Edward asked with concern. "Some of those are really spicy." Conan fanned his face with his hand and said, "Spicy? That was spicy for you?" "It's an ordinary chicken wing for me." Despite his bravado, he panted like a dog, his face turning red, revealing his playful exaggeration. After a brief moment, Conan sent Taylor off the stage, as her role was over, and she wanted to enjoy watching the interview. "Earlier, you told us the reason the project was disrupted, one of them is the missile attack," Conan said, smoothly leading into the conversation. We're doing this now?" Edward leaned in, fully engaged. "Are you ready?" Conan asked. "I'm ready." Edward took off his sunglasses, folded them, and tucked them into his chest pocket. "Before we dive in, I want to show the audience some exclusive footage from the day your house was blown up," Conan said, generating excitement in the room. "Let's watch it first." He gestured to a large TV that a staff member rolled onto the set. Conan played the video, and it's a short 15-second clip of him and his friend, acting out a skit of the missile attack. Conan: "We're going to attack the President of the United States. When we breach the White House's system, we're going to send missiles to every military base in the country. What about Edward Newgate's house? I fucking hate that guy." His friend, Paul Andrew Richter, said with a frown. "Okay. Let's blow up his house." "Anything else to be blown up?" Conan asked. "The Starbucks in my place keeps getting my name wrong." Another fake terrorist was added. "We're going to blow it up too," Conan said. "Anything else?" "There's this puppy shelter that kept asking me for donations," another terrorist asked. "Blow up the puppies too," Conan said seriously. The absurd skit made the audience laugh out loud. As it ended, Conan turned to Edward and said, "Critics said that I got 100% of the reenactment right." Edward couldn't help but lose his composure a little and laughed. For the first time in the interview, he was speechless. Conan finally felt satisfied and continued teasing Edward, "Unless there's an insider that can refute it. This is going to be written down in the history books." "I actually still have the footage of what happened inside the house that day," Edward said, suddenly dropping a bomb into the studio. Conan, Pepper, Harvey, Taylor, Ted, Ronaldo, Annie, Abed, basically everyone was extremely shocked when they heard it, except for Haley. Alex turned to Haley and asked, "Why aren't you surprised?" "I mean, Ed told me he usually records everything going on inside his house using Robin." Haley replied. "So he is going to have the footage." "It's not that weird." "Really? Can we see it?" Conan asked, extremely excited. The representatives from the cable network became dumbfounded when they heard it. If what Edward said was true, then it'll be the most exclusive news they could have about his incident. I'm not sure about that." Edward hesitated a bit. "No one actually came to see me after my house was gone. So I'm not sure if they would want me to keep quiet about it, or I can show it." Conan immediately said, "If they didn't come to brief you, then that's their own mistake. You're not responsible for it." You think so? Edward said before he thought about it for a bit. All right then. I'm going to show it. The censored version of it. The crowd cheered in excitement as Edward gestured for Randall to hand him his laptop. Turning to Conan, he asked, should I start from the very beginning, or just when the house got bombed? Start at an important part, Conan requested. Edward faced the audience and added, I'll skip ahead and explain. It'll take too long if I show the whole thing. As he played the footage, everyone's eyes were glued to the screen. Early that morning, my dad decided to make some burgers, and I invited some people over for a little party. But that's not important. That is important. Conan interjected, leaning in eagerly. Who did you invite to the house? Well, the people who worked on the movie with me, Edward replied casually. Some close friends. In fact, a few of them were still there when the whole thing went down. Who was still there? Conan pressed, his curiosity piqued. Taylor's one of them, Edward said, prompting the crowd to erupt in cheers. He paused at a scene where two agents, their faces blurred out, entered the house with heavy injuries. Annie gasped in shock as she saw it. That's the authentic footage from the incident, Abed muttered, equally stunned. Wait, who are these guys? Conan asked, a surprised expression on his face. Edward answered casually, oh, those are federal agents. They infiltrated my house before, so I knew what was happening at that time. They came by asking for help because they were being hunted down. Conan rubbed his sore forehead, disbelief evident. Wait, they infiltrated your house before? Kinda. But it's just a game between me and the feds. If I didn't catch the spies, they'd put 24/7 security details around me. Since I caught them, they just watch me from afar now. Wah ha, Conan shook his head in confusion. You have this whole international spy, infiltration mission, secret identity kind of life on the side while also being a singer? You know what? Before they make a movie about the missile, we need to make a movie about your spy games first. Edward shrugged and replied, I don't care. All I want is for them to pay me back for breaking my glass wall back then. The second time they came, I lost a house. So these two people are responsible for it all? Conan asked. Are they the ones who made your house blow to smithereens? I don't think so, Edward replied. They just came by because of a medical emergency. The injured guy was dying. I checked up on him yesterday, and he's still on bed rest. At that time, they couldn't go to the hospital, so they had to trust me. Edward pointed at the screen when he mentioned Casey. Conan was elated and asked, so what did you do after they came by? People thought that I alone fought off the terrorists, but actually, a lot of people were involved. Not just me, Edward said as he resumed the video. My dad cleaned up the blood on the floor. I helped the female agent perform surgery on the dying guy. My close friend Selena and my cousin Maggie disposed of the bloodied couch by throwing it into the ocean. Edward showed footage of Selena and Maggie giggling as they watched the cushion dropped onto the sea. Conan was flabbergasted and said, wait. I know her. She's the girl from Disney. Yeah. Selena's a singer. She's also a good actress. My cousin too, I guess. Edward said. Maggie got pissed when she saw it. You guess? She mumbled angrily. Edward shared a lot of things about the incident. How the girls were trapped too, and how a Colombian step-grandmother helped to distract the agents together with Miss D'Addario. He continued till the part where 8 armed men entered the house, clutching their guns. During this time, the value of the interview had jumped to over $40 million from a bid by TBS as they desperately wanted the exclusive. Conan continued interviewing Edward. They already have the place surrounded. How did you guys escape? Did you jump into the ocean? Please tell me you jumped into the ocean. Actually, I escaped using a slap. Edward said with a grin. You slapped them all? Conan widened his eyes. No, I got slapped. Edward said, which elicited some forcefully held back laughter from the audience. Wait, what? Yeah. I got slapped by Taylor. Edward skipped the video forward until it reached the part where Taylor slapped him. He replayed the slap a few times, which surprised the audience. Why did she slap you? It seems quite deserved, but why? Conan asked in a teasing manner. Should we use the lifeline again? He added. There's no need. The slap is quite deserved, as I planned it to be, Edward said casually. He then explained, when the terrorists came, they acted like federal agents, so I just played it cool. They warned me about helping the two real federal agents, saying they had gone rogue and were highly dangerous. Everyone held their breath as Edward recounted the events of that day. I pretended not to care and told them that even if the rogue agents showed up, I wouldn't risk it because I had something better to do. And what was that? Conan asked, intrigued. Breeding, Edward replied nonchalantly, prompting gasps from the audience and confused looks from some. What? Conan did a double take, unable to believe his ears. Edward laughed out loud. I pretended to be a horny teen. I told them that statistically, after a terror attack, people seek reassurance and affirmation of life, so they tend to hook up. I had a lot of beauties in my house, so I didn't want to help. Why would you say that? And why admit it? That'll just make the girls mad, Conan pointed out, confused. Edward chuckled slightly. That was the aim. Even if I whispered it to the guy, I made sure it was loud enough for the girls to hear. That way, they had an excuse to get out of there without raising suspicion. The crowd admired Edward's openness about the tragedy. He skipped over the part where he knocked over two agents, but people still caught glimpses of the fighting inside the house. So, everyone was gone, and you even sang a song. Why did your house still get attacked? Conan asked. To be honest, I didn't really know at the time, Edward replied, shaking his head slightly. So you know about it now? Conan prodded. Yeah, sorry, Edward quickly apologized after almost cursing. Conan immediately defended him. Why are you apologizing? Your house is gone. You can get worked up and curse the one sending the missile. No one will blame you for it. Edward laughed a bit before saying, all right then. That bitch, Skip Tyler. He's the one responsible for the attack on my house. He's one of the reported casualties inside the White House, if you remember. Yeah, the hacker. Why is he targeting you? Conan asked. I'm sure Apple and Microsoft will remember him. He used to cause a lot of trouble for them, Edward continued. He loves to infiltrate company systems and create chaos. But he couldn't get past my defenses, so I guess he threw the missile at my house as part of his tantrum. Is that a brag? Are you bragging? Conan asked incredulously. Edward smirked. It's not really bragging if it's the truth. Also, my aim isn't bragging, it's just to make some money. Conan was a bit frazzled but kept his composure. You want to make some money from this interview? Edward nodded. Yeah. My house is gone, and now the insurance company keeps postponing my payout, so I can't buy a new house. I've been sleeping in hotels and crashing at friends' places. The media keeps trashing my name. Overall, December is not a very good month for me. Conan leaned back in his chair, looking at Edward with a mix of admiration and sympathy. You know what? I feel really bad for you now. I feel bad for myself too. Edward laughed at his own misery. As the interview ended, TBS cable network representatives quickly sent a contract to get the rights for the show, and they paid Entertain $45 million for it. Although it sounds impressive, it still wasn't the highest bid in history. For example, Oprah Winfrey's interviews or those related to major scandals have fetched high prices, sometimes exceeding $50 million. Edward knew that he could get people to bid more, however, TBS made another offer. They wanted to set up a talk show for Conan. Edward told Conan about it and asked for his opinion even though Conan has no deciding power for what to use the interview for. He only asked Conan because he respected him. In less than 3 hours after the interview ended, the whole thing was broadcasted to the TBS cable network. Chapter 315, Conan Part 4 Final. General POV. Edward nodded. Yeah. My house is gone, and now the insurance company keeps postponing my payout, so I can't buy a new house. I've been sleeping in hotels and crashing at friends' places. The media keeps trashing my name. Overall, December is not a very good month for me. Conan leaned back in his chair, looking at Edward with a mix of admiration and sympathy. You know what? I feel really bad for you now. I feel bad for myself too, Edward laughed at his own misery. TBS broadcasted the interview immediately after they won the bid. Without any promotional efforts, Edward didn't think the interview would be a success, however, he was wrong. I guess we were so focused on the cool things he did that we ignored what he had to go through, Leonard commented as he watched the interview with his friends and Penny. Sheldon added, I heard from Amy that he helped someone cure their degenerative brain maladictment. She's bound by her NDA from telling me the details, but he funded the research using his own money and never took any credit for it. Penny looked at Sheldon in confusion and asked, Why are you speaking so highly of him? Didn't you think of him as a rival? Howard interrupted, answering the question for Sheldon, he did. But when Sheldon realized how similar Edward's life is to that of a real superhero, he became his little fan instead. Hey! I resent that. I'm not his little fan. I just don't hate him as much as I did, Sheldon protested while his friends laughed at him before they continued watching the interview on TV. Conan asked, Don't you feel scared when the whole thing goes down? I mean, I would freeze and wouldn't even know what to do until it's all over. You stepped up to help when you could have just turned them away and enjoyed the evening with the ladies. Why did you decide to take them in? The viewers and the studio audience were curious about this. Many wondered why Edward put himself at risk. He could have just walked away from it all. Edward thought for a moment before replying, I guess, it's because they need help? I didn't think much about it at the time. The audience exclaimed in amazement. Conan asked, You weren't scared? I was scared. I was scared shitless at that time, he added with a distressed expression and a forced smile. I had my close friends inside the house, and they could be implicated too. I could have jumped into the ocean as a last resort, but Taylor doesn't know how to swim. The crowd chuckled at his remark. Edward turned to the audience, laughing, I'm just kidding. She does know how to swim. The person who helps others simply because it should or must be done, and because it is the right thing to do, is indeed, without a doubt, a real superhero, Sheldon suddenly said. Leonard turned to him and asked, Where is that from? I think I've heard it before. Sheldon replied, Stan Lee. Penny looked at the screen in amazement and said, So he's like someone who escaped from a comic book. Based on what he's done, it could be, Sheldon agreed with Penny. Conan asked, Luckily, everything turned out well. I don't recommend that you or any of the viewers try to do what he did, but at the same time, it's really amazing what you have done. The crowd applauded and cheered for Edward, supporting and admiring him. The applause went on for quite a while, almost 5 minutes, but Edward cut it out of the final interview and made it time for a commercial instead. Conan changed the topic after a while, so, you're thinking about buying a new house. Why is it taking so long? I still want to live by the beach. I love watching the ocean, Edward replied, slightly adjusting his seating. Conan smirked and said, It's because you grew up around ships, isn't it? Kinda, Edward agreed, which made the audience chuckle a bit. I'm used to watching the sea whenever I wake up in my seaside villa. I wanted to be able to do that in my new home. However, I don't think I can do that anymore. Why not? Is it too expensive? That's impossible for you, Conan teased slightly. As the audience laughed, Edward replied, also laughing, Not that. I've already looked at several places, but when the people there find out it's me, they get scared and beg me not to move in. The audience furrowed their brows, expressing frustration on Edward's behalf. Why not? Why don't they want you there? Conan asked again, his eyes filled with confusion and slight irritation for the people who treated Edward that way. Don't get mad. I'm fine with it. I'm not mad, Edward reassured Conan. No. I want to get mad. Conan exclaimed exaggeratedly, which shifted the audience's mood. You're not my therapist. You can't tell me what to feel, he added playfully. Then he asked again, why didn't they want you to move near them? It's not that hard to figure out. They're scared another missile will hit, and the property values around the area will go down. Some of my neighbors in the seaside villa area even plan to sue me to make up for their losses, so I guess. Conan interrupted, they wanted to sue you. That's not important, they dropped it after finding out there's no basis for their lawsuit, Edward said dismissively. He then added, for my next home, I guess I'll have to find something in the mountains, somewhere I can be isolated. The crowd reacted to Edward's experience and his saddened expression when he mentioned the isolation. Some expressed anger, while others showed deep sadness for him. Edward noticed and turned to the audience, don't worry, it'll be fine. Despite not being able to live by the beach anymore, I can trade it for Batman's house, so it's a fair trade. The audience chuckled at Edward's words. Conan nodded slightly and asked, you found Batman's house? No, so far, I only found some land, Edward replied with excitement. I'm going on a world tour for 2 years, so I'm not in a rush to find a new place. I decided to build one for myself. I wouldn't be surprised if, in 2 years, he actually builds a Batman house, Jay muttered after watching the interview. Phil commented, with the Batcave underneath it. Luke added, with the Batmobile parked in it. The interview ended after Edward discussed his world tour with Conan. Conan asked, you mentioned the world tour. What kind of world tour takes 2 years? No one has actually done that before. Oh, it's not a work-only world tour per se. It's more of my dad and me touring the world over 2 years, Edward clarified with a smile. I want to see the world too and learn new things. Some people get mad that I learn Japanese to sing in Japan, but I wonder if they'll get irate when they learn I'm going to perform in Italian, French, Portuguese, Spanish, and I even prepared a performance in Mongolia, learning their traditional throat singing. Mongolian throat singing? What's that? Conan asked. Edward demonstrated by singing a bit of Mongolian throat singing, which made the audience laugh at the abruptness of it. What? Conan was flabbergasted. Edward laughed and said, that's how they sing the traditional song. Tell me, why are you learning all of this? Are you just bored? Is that it? Conan asked, slightly teasing but looking serious. Edward laughed and replied, no. It's a bit more personal. The reason I made the songs for the world tour is that I think that when songs are translated, they lose a certain nuance or meaning behind them. I guess that's why I try to learn new languages. The crowd was amazed by Edward's intention behind the song. When the interview was posted on Netflix, the international netizen felt Edward's sincerity and it earned him a lot of new fans. Some people thought I'd be gone for good, but I already bought my Super Bowl ticket, so, Edward joked. I'll be back. I promise. Conan replied, and when you come back, make sure you tell me all about your trip around the world. On your new show? Edward quipped, which made Conan look momentarily depressed. Then Edward surprised him, the Conan show on TBS. They just picked it up. Make sure you don't get canned from that too before I return. The crowd applauded excitedly after hearing Edward's announcement. Conan blanked out for a second before muttering, what? Hey, Conan really signed on with TBS for the Conan show, Howard said after quickly Googling the news. Although the pay was less than what he received at NBC, Conan would have more creative freedom on his own show. TBS offered him a $10 million per year salary, which was more compared to what he would have initially received, around $5 to $7 million. It was $2 million less than his NBC salary, but with more creative control, Conan felt it was worth it. The negotiations had already been in place, and Edward's interview just made it happen earlier. Before we end the interview, Edward said he wants to share an interesting fact with us all. Conan said after hugging Edward and celebrating the announcement of the new show. Edward suddenly leaned forward and said, do you know humans have no pain receptors on our lower lips? Huh? Really? Albeit confused, Conan tested it out by biting his lower lip. Edward quickly took out a camera and snapped a selfie with Conan while some staff members took pictures of the audience. Conan couldn't even react before Edward shared the picture on the screen, showing him biting his lip seductively. Embarrassed, Conan stood up immediately and exclaimed, "HUI. Delete that. I think I'll make this my profile picture," Edward said casually. Conan was flabbergasted, and then Edward added, "I'll even post it on my Instagram feed." It was an act of promotion for his apps, which was a clever idea considering TBS achieved 14 million viewers, setting a new record for the network in the category of interview segments. It was a huge success for the cable network, and the money they used to buy the interview was worth it. "Thank you, Edward Newgate, for being so honest today," Conan said. "Before we end the show, Edward has agreed to share his performance inside the mansion before the missile hit, something that we are all intrigued about, which makes this another exclusive footage from the day of the incident." "Edward, what is the title of this song?" "It's called, As the World Caves In." Conan played the footage as the camera pulled back, and the interview ended. The edited footage of the final moment in the mansion turned some of the audience members teary, especially when it was accompanied with the emotional song. Penny turned to the guys and saw Leonard, Howard, and Rajesh sniffling. Even though her eyes were also red, she made fun of those guys. "Wait. Are you guys crying?" "No," Leonard replied, his voice breaking slightly, "we just have some dust in our eyes." Edward POV. After the interview was over, I hung out with Pepper and Taylor in the office while Harvey finalized the contract with TBS. "You talked a lot of nonsense in there," Taylor complained. Pepper nodded and added, "They had to cut it down from 3 hours to 1 hour. I grimaced and replied, "What? I don't know what they'll use in the final edit, so I just answered whatever he asked me." The final editing was handled by Conan and his team, not me. Right now, I just wanted to focus on counting the money. Thanks to the interview, the insurance company finally felt the pressure and released the compensation for my destroyed home. "So, you're going to use the money to buy land?" Pepper asked curiously. I nodded. "Yeah. I think I will. I can get 5 acres of land for around 1 million outside the city, or I could buy a small hill near the Palisades for 5 million. Pepper's expression shifted as he furrowed his brow. "You don't mean that hill, do you?" "Kinda," I replied with a wry smile. "And oh. Pepper exclaimed in disbelief. Taylor looked confused and asked, "What hill? What's wrong with it?" "The hill itself is fine. But there's a mansion on top of it, a haunted mansion," Pepper said, his tone taking on a spooky edge. Taylor raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "What do you mean, haunted?" I smirked and moved behind Taylor, whispering conspiratorially, "It said that a family of 4 died there mysteriously one stormy night." After that, every resident who moved into the mansion reported hearing a woman sobbing and children's footsteps running around the hall. Startled, Taylor looked horrified and slowly pushed my head away. "Stop kidding around." In America, about 57% of the population believed in the existence of ghosts. Countless abandoned houses across the country remained unwanted due to these rumors and the unsettling feelings people experienced when entering them. This meant I could buy that small hill for a really, really low price. "Aren't you scared, Edward? What if they haunt you too?" Pepper asked, concern etched on his face. "You're going to demolish the house there, right?" Taylor suggested, her brow furrowing. I shrugged and replied, "If there are any apparitions lingering, I'll make sure to charge them rent." I was indeed considering demolishing the so-called haunted house. Its foundation was already crumbling, so starting from scratch would be the best option. The main reason I wanted to buy the hill was its proximity, only 15 minutes away from my childhood home. Not to mention it has a stunning view of the city from up there. However, acquiring an entire hill would require a lot of work and paperwork. Harvey needed to find the current owner of that hill as it wasn't owned by the city. The landscape was filled with natural vegetation and wildlife, making it a beautiful yet challenging site for development. Even if I started building the house immediately, it would take at least 3 years for the place to be livable. Now was the best time for me to snatch up some property. After the 2008 economic market crash, the housing market hasn't recovered fully yet. I even bought some plots of land in the inner city that were sold for cheap. I plan to build some libraries or a basketball court there. You're a weird dude. Taylor looked at me with disbelief. Buy sports cars. Be normal. Don't buy properties like an old guy. Even I don't snatch up properties like you do. Pepper grimaced. I shrugged and joked, well, you should. I'm going to buy a lot of places all over the country, make the college kids who are learning trade work fix it for me for credit score, and then flip it for money without offering them any profits. You're diabolical. Conan, who just entered the room, scolded me playfully. We talked for hours inside the room, and I even brought out the last bottle of Euphoria with me. I really need my lab back. I muttered with a depressed look on my face as I watched the last drop of Euphoria disappear from Conan's glass. It's finally Christmas Eve, and I was running around buying last-minute presents for my friends. My family from Wisconsin had come to California to spend Christmas with me, although they stayed in a rented house by the beach rather than staying at my place. Amy and Maggie helped me to decorate my house and the Christmas tree while I watched TV on my laptop. Why isn't he helping? Amy whined as she complained to my grandmother. Honey, Edward is working. Grandma Jules explained. He's watching South Park. Maggie exposed while pointing her finger at me. They are making a special episode with me. I argued back. Of course I'm going to watch it. South Park made an episode based on the terror attack which was initiated by Cartman. He found a secret missile base and attacked my house just for shit and giggled. Then, I began hunting him in his city, turning all of his friends against him one by one. Cartman made amends with me by whooping Whoopi on her ass, which was hilarious. I voiced the character myself, which earned me a lot of respect from the audience of the show as I was okay with making fun of myself. Family Guy also has planned a special episode with me, but it will air after Christmas. After I finished watching it, I picked up the gifts I had wrapped and walked towards the Dunphys' house. The door was unlocked, and it was open slightly ajar, so I just walked in. However, when I entered the house, I saw the 3 kids sitting on the couch and the parents were scolding them, standing beside the Christmas tree. This is unacceptable, and I want to know who did this. Claire scolded, crossing her arms together. Haley stared at her parents rebelliously while Alex looked distressed. Nobody, huh? I guess the couch did it to itself. It came home after a tough day, lit up a cigarette and then burnt itself. Is that what happened? Because that makes no sense. Phil scolded. If whoever's responsible doesn't come forward, we'll punish all 3 of you. Claire gave an ultimatum. What? Haley exclaimed. That's not fair. Luke retorted with a sad face. Phil smiled as he saw he was in the children's head. I can forgive the smoking, but I can't forgive the lie. As he was stared at by Claire, he quickly fixed his wording, or the smoking. No one wants to confess? Claire stared at her children and asked with a slightly shaky voice. Phil got irritated and said, that's fine, because you know what happens next? We cancel Christmas. That's not fair. Luke exclaimed immediately. Okay, Dad, sure. Haley said, thinking that there was no way it would happen. Claire looked at Phil with a slight concern, her eyes shook as she thought about the implication. Phil and Claire's commentary. Claire said, holding Phil's hand, Phil has a habit of making big pronouncements to the kids. Phil chuckled and said, one time, I told Luke that if he didn't put his dirty dishes in the dishwasher, we would put them in his bed. Claire sighed, Phil's problem is follow-through. When this happened, all of the dirty dishes were placed in Luke's bed, which meant that the family had no more plates to use. Phil sighed, we had no more dishes, so we were eating cereal out of the goldfish bowl. Commentary ends. Okay, guess where I'm headed? To take down the tree. Phil walked beside the decorated Christmas tree. Right, this is your last chance. Come on, guys. Whoever it is, just take responsibility. Don't put the rest of us through this. Claire stammered. As a parent, it was important for them to stay on the same side. That's why she's supporting Phil even though she felt that he was being excessive. Phil looked at his children, his eyes shook slightly. This is really it. He waited, but no one fessed up. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, goodbye, Dunphy Christmas. His voice broke a bit as he began to dismantle the tree. Haley, I guess you're not getting that car. Phil told his eldest daughter. I was getting a car. Haley exclaimed unfairly. No, I was lying, because that's what we do now. Dunphys are liars. Phil said as he dragged the tree out of the living room. Oh, hi, Ed. He walked past me casually as he took the tree outside of the door. Hi, Phil. I greeted casually. Ed. When did you get here? Claire widened her eyes slightly, embarrassed by thinking that she had made a spectacle in front of me. Just now. The door's open, so I just walked in to drop off the gifts. I replied, but then I heard Christmas is cancelled over here at this house. Should I bring these back? That wraps up this part of What If Karmic Gacha System in Modern Family World. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.